The lights were bright in the Family Feud studio in Atlanta, and Steve Harvey was in his element, working the crowd with his signature mix of humor and heart. It was a Thursday afternoon in October, and two families were ready to compete for $20,000. But nobody in that studio, not even Steve himself, knew that this particular episode would become one of the most memorable moments in the show's long history. The Williams family from Louisiana stood on one side, 5 people who looked like they'd been through life together and come out stronger. There was Denise Williams, 38, standing in the middle spot, trying to keep her smile steady even though anyone paying attention could see the exhaustion in her eyes. Next to her stood her mother, Patricia, a 64-year-old woman with silver hair and knowing eyes. On Denise's other side was her sister Monica, 41, then her brother Trevor, 33, and finally her daughter Kayla, 10 years old with her mother's eyes and a maturity beyond her years. "All right, Williams family," Steve called out with enthusiasm. "Y'all looking good? Looking ready to win some money?" The family cheered, but Denise's cheer was somewhat subdued. Steve noticed, as he noticed everything. That was part of what made him great at this job. He could read people, see their stories written in the way they stood, the way they smiled, the way they held back tears they thought nobody would notice. "Now, Denise," Steve said, walking over to her, "you're the captain of this family team. Tell me about yourself. What do you do?" Denise straightened up a bit. "I'm a registered nurse, Steve. I work at the pediatric ward at Children's Hospital in New Orleans." "A pediatric nurse," Steve said warmly. "God bless you. That's beautiful work. Not easy, but beautiful. And I see you got your daughter here. Kayla, right?" Kayla nodded, suddenly shy with Steve's attention on her. "Yes, sir. 10 years old," Steve continued. "You must be proud of your mama, working with sick kids, making them feel better." "I am," Kayla said, finding her voice. "She's the strongest person I know. She does it all by herself, too." Steve raised an eyebrow. By herself? There was a moment of awkward silence. Denise jumped in quickly. "My partner, Robert, he works offshore. Oil rigs in the Gulf. He's been gone for, well, it's been about 10 months this time." 10 months? Steve's expression shifted to one of sympathy. That's a long time to be away from family. Patricia, Denise's mother, couldn't help but interject. "Been together 12 years, Steve. 12 years. And that man still hasn't put a ring on my baby's finger." "Mama," Denise protested, her cheeks flushing. "Please, not on national television." Steve chuckled, but it was a gentle sound, not mocking. 12 years? And he's offshore most of that time? "He works 3 weeks on, 1 week off, usually," Denise explained, clearly wanting to defend Robert despite his absence. "But this contract has been different. They've had equipment problems, staff shortages. He's been doing double rotations to help out. The money's good, really good. But," she trailed off, and everyone could hear what she didn't say. "The money was good. But money couldn't hug you at night. Money couldn't be there for your daughter's school plays, or your birthday, or Christmas morning." "When's the last time you saw him?" Steve asked, gently. Denise had to think about it. "January. He came home for a week in January. He was supposed to be back in April, but there was an explosion on a neighboring platform. Nobody from his rig was hurt, but they needed experienced guys to help with the situation. Then in July, there was a hurricane threat, and they had to evacuate, but then go right back. And then," she stopped, swallowing hard. Monica put a supportive hand on her sister's shoulder. "It's been hard," Denise admitted. "Really hard. But that's life, right? We do what we have to do." Steve nodded, his expression thoughtful. 12 years, though. That's a marriage without the marriage. You got a child together. What's his excuse for not making it official?" Trevor, Denise's brother, snorted. "That's what we all want to know." "Trevor," Denise warned, but there was no real heat in it. "I'm just saying," Trevor continued. "Robert's a good man. Works hard, takes care of you and Kayla financially. But 12 years? Come on. He says he wants to do it right, Denise said softly. Wants to be able to give me the wedding I deserve, the ring I deserve. Wants to be financially stable enough that I don't have to work if I don't want to. But I keep telling him, I don't need all that. I just need him. The competing family, the Johnsons from Texas, were listening with sympathy. Even they could feel the weight of Denise's situation. Well, Steve said, trying to lighten the mood, maybe when he comes back, you need to give him an ultimatum. 12 years is long enough to know if you want to marry somebody. Kayla suddenly spoke up. He's a good dad, even from far away. He video calls every night he can. Helps me with homework over the phone. He's missed a lot, but he tries. He really tries. I know he does, baby, Denise said, pulling her daughter close. I know he does. Steve transitioned them into the game, introducing the Johnson family and getting things started. But throughout the first round, he kept noticing little things about Denise. The way she kept touching her bare ring finger. The way she seemed to be holding herself together through pure willpower. The way her family kept giving her concerned looks. The Williams family played well, their chemistry evident despite the underlying tension about Robert. They won the first round, with Denise scoring the top answer about things people do when they're nervous. Bite their nails, she'd said, and Steve had joked. Speaking from experience? She'd laughed, but it was true. Her nails were bitten down to the quick, a nervous habit that had gotten worse over the past 10 months. During the commercial break, Steve found himself drawn back to Denise. You okay, sweetheart? You seem like you got something heavy on your heart. Denise's eyes welled up, but she blinked the tears back. Today's our anniversary, actually. 12 years ago today, Robert and I got together. He probably doesn't even remember. He's not great with dates, and it's hard to keep track of days on the rig. Have you talked to him today? She shook her head. The communication systems have been down for 3 days. Some kind of satellite issue. I haven't heard from him since Monday. Kayla's been worried. She's used to their nightly calls. Steve felt something stir in his chest. This woman was holding her family together, working as a nurse with sick children, raising a 10-year-old, all while the man she loved was hundreds of miles away on an oil platform in the middle of the ocean. Does he know you're here? Steve asked. On the show? Yeah, I told him last month when we found out we were selected. He was excited for us. Said maybe we could use the prize money for a vacation when he gets back. She laughed, but it was hollow. We've been planning vacations for 12 years. Somehow, there's always another contract, another opportunity for overtime, another reason to postpone. Patricia had walked over and heard the last part. That man loves you, baby. We all know that. He's just stuck in his own head about what he thinks you need versus what you actually need. I know, Mama, Denise said. I just wish he understood that all I need is him. Present. Here. With us. The stage manager called for places, and they returned to the game. The Williams family continued to do well, winning the second round too. Steve was about to read the next question when his producer, Marcus Freeman, appeared at the edge of the stage with a phone in his hand. Steve saw him and shook his head. Marcus, we're in the middle of taping. But Marcus walked onto the stage anyway, something that never happened unless there was an emergency. The audience started murmuring, wondering what was going on. Steve, Marcus said urgently, you need to take this call. Right now. Man, can't it wait? Steve asked, confused and a little annoyed. No, Marcus said firmly. Trust me on this one. Take the call. Steve took the phone, completely bewildered. Denise had gone rigid, her mind immediately going to worst-case scenarios. Oil rigs were dangerous places. Explosions, equipment failures, men lost overboard. Her hand found Kayla's and gripped it tight. Hello? Steve said into the phone. Mr. Harvey? The voice was distant, crackling with static. This is James Patterson, Platform Safety Coordinator for Titan Oil. Calling from Platform Delta 7 Inches, the Gulf of Mexico. Steve's eyes immediately went to Denise, who looked like she might faint. Yes, sir? Mr. Harvey, I understand you have the Williams family on your show right now. Specifically, Denise Williams? Yes, sir, she's right here, Steve said carefully, watching Denise's face drain of color. Mr. Harvey, I'm calling about Robert Chen. There's been an incident on the platform. Denise let out a small cry. Monica and Trevor immediately moved to support her. Kayla's eyes went wide with fear. What kind of incident? Steve asked, his own heart racing. There was an equipment malfunction 2 days ago. A crane collapse. Robert was working directly underneath it when it happened. Denise's knees buckled. Her family held her up. The entire studio had gone completely silent. Mr. Harvey, the coordinator continued, Robert was injured. But I need you to know immediately that he's alive and stable. Steve let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. He's alive? He is. Broken ribs, concussion, some lacerations. But Mr. Harvey, the reason I'm calling you now, during your show, is because Robert has something important he needs to say to Denise, and he insisted it happen on your show. Can you put her on? Steve looked at Denise, who was trembling. Denise, honey, he's okay. He's alive and he wants to talk to you. With shaking hands, Denise took the phone. Robert? Baby? Is that you? The voice that came through was weak, but unmistakably Robert's. Steve had moved close enough that his mic picked it up. Hey, beautiful. I'm okay. I'm okay. Denise started crying. They said there was an accident. A crane. I know, baby. I know. But I'm all right. Banged up pretty good, but I'm going to be fine. Denise, baby, I need you to listen to me. I'm listening, she said through her tears. When that crane was coming down, all I could think about was you. You and Kayla, and how I've wasted so much time, so much precious time. I've been out here for 12 years, telling myself I was doing it for us, for our future. But what future? I've missed everything. Every birthday, every anniversary, every important moment. Robert, it's okay. No, it's not okay, Robert interrupted. Denise, I've been an idiot. A complete idiot. I kept saying I wanted to give you everything, but I never asked what you actually wanted. I just assumed. And in trying to give you everything, I gave you nothing. I gave you loneliness and empty promises, and a ring finger that's been bare for 12 years. The studio was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was hanging on every word. Baby, Robert continued, I need to tell you something. The communication hasn't really been down. I've been lying to you for 3 days. What? Denise was confused. Why would you? Because I've been planning something. With the help of Steve's producers and my platform coordinator, and a whole lot of people who think you deserve better than what I've given you. Robert, what are you talking about? Denise Williams, I need you to turn around. Denise turned slowly, and there, walking onto the Family Feud stage, was Robert Chen. His head was bandaged, his left arm was in a sling, and he was moving slowly, obviously in pain. But he was there. He was actually there. Denise stood frozen for a moment, unable to believe what she was seeing. Then she ran to him, careful of his injuries, but unable to stop herself from throwing her arms around him. How? She asked, pulling back to look at his face, touching it like she needed to make sure he was real. How are you here? Robert smiled through his own tears. The accident happened. That part was true, but it happened 4 days ago, not 2. They airlifted me to a hospital in Houston, and when I woke up, when they told me how close I'd come to dying, all I could think about was how I'd almost left this world without making you my wife. Robert, let me finish, he said gently. I called the show's producers from my hospital bed, told them everything. They helped arrange for me to get here. My company flew me here on a medical transport because, Denise, I couldn't wait another day, not another hour. With difficulty, Robert got down on one knee. The entire studio gasped. Denise's hands flew to her mouth. "Robert, your injuries." She started. "I'm fine," he said, though everyone could see the pain on his face. But he pushed through it, reaching into his pocket with his good hand and pulling out a small velvet box. "Denise Williams," he began, his voice strong despite everything. 12 years ago, you took a chance on a roughneck oil worker with big dreams and empty pockets. You've waited for me through missed birthdays, missed anniversaries, missed everything. You've raised our daughter practically alone. You've been patient when I didn't deserve patience. You've been faithful when I gave you every reason to walk away." He opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful diamond ring. Not huge, not flashy, but perfect. "This isn't the ring I wanted to give you," Robert admitted. "I had all these plans for something bigger, something more impressive. But lying in that hospital bed, I realized you never wanted the biggest ring. You just wanted the ring. You never wanted the perfect proposal. You just wanted the proposal. You never wanted the fairy tale wedding. You just wanted the wedding. You wanted me. Just me." Denise was sobbing now, as was most of the audience. Steve had taken off his glasses to wipe his eyes. "So I'm here, baby," Robert continued, "broken ribs and all, because I finally understand that tomorrow isn't guaranteed. That crane taught me that. We don't get to wait for perfect. We only get to choose what we do with today. And today, in front of your family, in front of Steve Harvey, and all these people, I'm choosing you. I'm choosing us. Will you marry me?" "Yes," Denise said without hesitation. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Robert struggled to his feet, and she helped him slide the ring onto her finger with his good hand. Then she kissed him, careful of his bandages but unable to hold back 12 years of waiting. The studio erupted. The Johnson family was applauding just as hard as the Williams family. Kayla ran to her parents, wrapping them both in a careful hug. "Dad," she cried, "you're here. You're really here." "I'm here, baby girl," Robert said, kissing the top of his daughter's head. "And I'm not going anywhere." Patricia, Denise's mother, approached with tears streaming down her face.
"It's about time, Robert Chen. It's about damn time."
"I know, Miss Pat," Robert said sheepishly. "I'm sorry it took me so long." "Don't apologize," Patricia said. "Just don't make her wait another 12 years for the wedding." Robert laughed, then winced as it hurt his ribs. "Actually, about that." Everyone looked at him curiously. "I talked to my company yesterday," Robert announced. "After 12 years on the rigs, I'm done. I'm taking a land-based position. Safety coordinator for the Louisiana facilities. Monday through Friday, home every night. The pay's less, a lot less. But you'll be home," Denise finished, fresh tears starting. "You'll actually be home every night," Robert confirmed. "Every morning, every birthday, every anniversary, every random Tuesday, I'll be there." Steve finally found his voice. "In all my years of doing this show," he said, wiping his eyes, "I have never seen anything like this. Robert, you flew here with broken ribs to propose?" "Sir, I would have crawled here with 2 broken legs," Robert said seriously. "This woman has been my anchor for 12 years. Every night on that rig, looking at the stars, I thought about her. Every dangerous job, every close call. She was what I was living for. I just got so caught up in trying to provide that I forgot to actually be present." Steve turned to the cameras. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do something special here. This isn't just about a game show anymore. This is about love, patience, and second chances." He walked over to his producers. "Both families are winning today. I don't care what the rules say. The Williams family and the Johnson family are both getting the prize money." The Johnson family immediately protested that the Williams should get everything, but Steve waved them off. "And," Steve continued, "we're going to do something else. He turned to Robert and Denise. "When's the wedding?" Robert and Denise looked at each other. "We haven't even thought." Denise started. "How about right now?" Steve asked. Everyone gasped. Denise's eyes went wide. "What? Here? Now?" "Why not?" Steve said. "You've waited 12 years. Your whole family is here. We've got an audience full of witnesses. And it just so happens that I'm ordained." "You're ordained?" Robert asked, surprised. "Got ordained online years ago for a friend's wedding," Steve said with a grin. "Never thought I'd use it on Family Feud, but here we are." Denise looked at Robert, who was smiling despite his pain. "What do you think, baby? Want to marry me right here, right now?" "I'm wearing jeans and a Family Feud t-shirt." Denise laughed through her tears. "You're wearing 12 years of patience and love," Robert said. "That's the most beautiful wedding dress I've ever seen." Monica, Denise's sister, suddenly spoke up. "Wait! I have something!" She ran to her purse at the family's podium and pulled out a small wrapped box. "I was going to give this to you after the show for your anniversary, but..." Denise opened it to find a simple but elegant pearl necklace. "Monica, it's beautiful." "It was Grandma's," Monica said. "She always said it should go to you on your wedding day. I've been carrying it around for years, hoping." Patricia added, "That's your something old. The ring is your something new." Kayla pulled a small blue hair clip from her own hair. "Something blue, Mom." Trevor pulled a $20 bill from his wallet. "And here's something borrowed. You can pay me back later." Everyone laughed, even Robert, despite his injuries. The Johnson family offered to stand as additional witnesses. Someone from the audience offered a bouquet of flowers they'd brought to the taping. The studio transformation was swift and magical. With everyone contributing to make an impromptu wedding, Steve positioned himself at center stage. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today in the most unlikely of places to witness something that should have happened a long time ago." The audience chuckled. Robert and Denise have chosen to finally make official what has been true in their hearts for 12 years. They've weathered separation, loneliness, missed moments, and near tragedy. But through it all, their love has endured. Steve turned to Robert. "Robert Chen, do you take Denise Williams to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, in sickness and health, but especially in presence and proximity? From this day forward?" "I do," Robert said firmly. "I absolutely do." "Denise Williams, do you take Robert Chen to be your lawfully wedded husband, to forgive 12 years of waiting, and trust in the promise of all the years to come?" "I do," Denise said, her voice strong and clear. "The rings?" Steve asked. Robert looked panicked for a moment, then Patricia stepped forward. "Use mine," she said, pulling off a simple gold band. "It's been in the family for 50 years. My marriage lasted 47 years until death did us part. May yours last even longer." Robert slipped the band onto Denise's finger alongside the engagement ring. "I don't have a ring for him," Denise said, distressed. Mr. Johnson from the competing family stepped forward. "Use mine," he said, removing his wedding band. "Been married 35 years. It's brought us luck. You can mail it back to us, but for today, let it seal your union." With tears in her eyes, Denise slipped the borrowed ring onto Robert's finger. "By the power vested in me by the internet and the state of Georgia," Steve said with a smile, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. Robert, kiss your bride carefully. You got broken ribs." Robert pulled Denise close with his good arm and kissed her like he'd been waiting 12 years to do it. Which, in a way, he had. The studio erupted in cheers. The newly married couple was surrounded by family, everyone careful of Robert's injuries, but unable to contain their joy. Steve wiped his eyes again. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've just witnessed a Family Feud first. Our first wedding. And you know what? This calls for more than just prize money." He turned to his producers. "Call the Ritz-Carlton. The honeymoon suite is on us. And call that fancy restaurant What's it called? The one with the chef from France? They're getting a wedding dinner tonight. Steve, that's too much, Denise protested. No, Steve said firmly. 12 years of waiting? That's too much. This is just right. Robert suddenly swayed on his feet, his face going pale. Dad! Kayla caught him along with Trevor. I'm okay, Robert said, though he clearly wasn't. Just, maybe I should sit down. They helped him to a chair, and Denise immediately went into nurse mode, checking his pupils, his pulse. You should be in a hospital bed, she scolded gently. I was, Robert said with a weak smile, but I had somewhere more important to be. A paramedic who was on standby for the show came over to check Robert's vitals. His blood pressure's a little low, probably from the pain and exertion. He really should rest. We'll go to the hospital after, Robert said stubbornly. I'm not leaving yet. We haven't even played fast money. Everyone laughed. Even injured, even after just getting married, Robert was thinking about the game. You know what? Steve said. We're going to play fast money, but we're going to do it different. Both families together. And Robert, you're going to play from that chair. They set it up so Robert could participate while seated. The questions seemed oddly appropriate for the moment. Name something people wait too long to do. Robert's answer, propose. Name something that's worth the wait. Denise's answer, true love. Name a reason people postpone important decisions. Robert's answer, fear. Name something you regret not doing sooner. Robert's answer, coming home. Name the most important thing in life. Both Robert and Denise answered simultaneously, family. They won the fast money round easily, bringing their total to $40,000 with Steve's multiplication of the prize. But the show wasn't over. Steve had one more surprise. Robert, you said you're taking a land-based job, making less money. That's a big sacrifice. Robert nodded. It's not a sacrifice. It's a correction. I've had my priorities wrong for too long. Well, Steve said, I made some calls while the paramedic was checking you out. Talked to some people I know in the oil industry. Turns out Chevron has been looking for someone with your exact experience to head up their new safety training program. It's based right here in Atlanta, and it pays. Well, let's just say it pays enough that Denise can cut back to part-time at the hospital if she wants. Robert and Denise looked at each other in shock. Are you serious? Robert asked. The job's yours if you want it, Steve confirmed. They were impressed by your safety record and the fact that you've never had a serious incident until now in 12 years on the rigs. They want you to teach the next generation of oil workers how to stay safe. But we live in Louisiana, Denise said. So move, Steve said simply. Fresh start. New city. New life as a married couple. Patricia spoke up. Baby, we can visit. It's not that far. Monica added. And maybe a change would be good. You've been in the same place, same routine, waiting for 12 years. Maybe it's time for something new. Kayla, who had been quiet, suddenly said, I think we should do it. Dad's right here. The job's right here. It feels like a sign. Robert looked at his new wife. What do you think, Mrs. Chen? Denise started at the name, then smiled. I think yes. Yes to all of it. Yes to the new job. Yes to the move. Yes to the fresh start. We've been stuck for so long. Maybe it's time to unstick ourselves. The audience applauded again. The Johnson family congratulated them. And in that moment, on the Family Feud stage, a new chapter began for the Chen family. As the taping wound down, Steve asked Robert to share his story, to explain what had really happened on the rig. Robert, still seated but looking stronger with Denise by his side, spoke into the microphone. I've worked offshore for 12 years, he began. It's dangerous work, but you get used to the danger. You get complacent. 4 days ago, I was doing a routine inspection under a crane that was supposed to be locked down, but someone hadn't followed protocol. A pin failed, and 8 tons of steel came down. He paused, gathering himself. I saw it coming, had maybe 2 seconds to react. I dove to the side, but not fast enough. The boom caught me, threw me 15 feet. When I woke up in the medical bay, the first thing I said was, I need to call Denise. But then I thought, no. I've given that woman 12 years of phone calls. She deserves more than another phone call. He looked at Denise with such love that everyone felt it. The platform supervisor thought I was crazy when I said I wanted to leave the hospital to go to a game show taping. But when I told him about 12 years of waiting, he made it happen. The whole crew pitched in. Guys gave up their helicopter seats so I could get to shore faster. The company expedited everything. Because everyone understood that sometimes love can't wait another day. What made you realize that? Steve asked. After all this time? Robert was quiet for a moment. When that crane was coming down, my life didn't flash before my eyes. You know what did? All the moments I'd missed. Kayla's first day of school. Denise's nursing school graduation. 12 Christmases. 12 New Years. 12 anniversaries. And I thought, if I survive this, I'm not missing another one. Not one. He turned to Kayla. Baby girl, I know I've missed so much. I can't get that time back. But I promise you, from now on I'll be there. Every soccer game, every school play, every broken heart, every triumph, I'll be there. Kayla hugged him carefully. I know, Dad, I know. Steve had one final question. Denise, how do you feel right now? Denise looked at her hand, at the rings she'd waited 12 years to wear. Then she looked at her husband, injured but present. Finally, fully present. I feel like I've been holding my breath for 12 years, she said, and I can finally exhale. The taping ended, but the story was just beginning. The Chens, they were the Chens now, officially were taken to the hospital first, where Robert was properly examined and treated. 3 broken ribs, a mild concussion, 17 stitches, and a severely bruised shoulder. The doctors were amazed he'd managed the proposal and wedding. Adrenaline and love, Robert told them. Powerful combination. That evening, despite Robert's injuries, they had their wedding dinner at the restaurant Steve had arranged. The entire Williams family, the entire Johnson family, and even some of the Family Feud production crew attended. It wasn't the wedding reception Denise had dreamed of as a young girl, but it was perfect in its imperfection. Steve made a surprise appearance at the dinner, giving a toast that had everyone in tears again. To Robert and Denise Chen, he said, raising his glass. Proof that love isn't about perfect timing. It's about perfect commitment. It's not about waiting for the right moment. It's about making any moment the right one. 12 years is a long time to wait, but looking at you two now, I'd say it was worth it. 3 weeks later, when the episode aired, it became an immediate sensation. The video went viral within hours. Number 12 years started trending. Oil rig workers from around the world shared their own stories of missing family while working offshore. Military families, long-haul truckers, traveling nurses, and others in jobs that kept them from home resonated with the story. But more importantly, it started conversations about work-life balance, about what really matters, about not waiting for someday to live your life. Chevron, Robert's new employer, was flooded with positive publicity for hiring him. They ended up creating a new family support program for their offshore workers, inspired by Robert's story. The hospital where Denise worked gave her a sabbatical to handle the move and the sudden attention. When she returned, it was part-time as planned, allowing her to spend more time with her family. 6 months later, Steve had the Chens back on his talk show for an update. How's married life treating you? Steve asked. Robert and Denise sat close together, her hand in his, both of them looking healthier and happier than they had 6 months ago. It's an adjustment, Robert admitted, being home every night after 12 years of being gone. Sometimes I still wake up expecting to hear ocean and machinery. Instead, I hear Denise breathing next to me, and I have to remind myself it's real. He's had some PTSD from the accident, Denise added honestly. Loud noises, especially anything that sounds like metal grinding. but we're working through it together. The difference is, we're actually together to work through it. And the new job? Steve asked. Robert's face lit up. I love it. I'm training young guys, teaching them not just how to be safe on the rigs, but how to maintain their family connections while they're gone. We've instituted mandatory family communication time, better rotation schedules, mental health support. I'm trying to make sure no one else misses 12 years of their life. And Kayla? How's she adjusting to having Dad home all the time? Kayla, who had joined them for the interview, smiled. It's weird, but good weird. Like, he's there every morning making breakfast. He helps with homework in person instead of over video chat. He came to my school play last month. I kept looking out in the audience, expecting him not to be there. But he was. He's been to everything. Everything, Robert confirmed. Even the things she doesn't want me at. I'm making up for lost time. You can't make up for lost time, Steve said gently. No, Robert agreed. But I can make sure I don't lose any more time. Steve turned to Denise. Any regrets about the sudden wedding? No big dress? No fancy ceremony? Denise laughed. Steve, I wore a Family Feud t-shirt to my wedding. My mom's pearl necklace was my only decoration. We borrowed our wedding rings, and it was perfect. Because after 12 years, I learned that the wedding isn't what matters. The marriage is what matters. Although, Robert added with a grin, we are planning a proper ceremony for our 1-year anniversary. Denise deserves to wear the dress, have the flowers, the whole thing. But even if we don't, Denise said quickly, it's okay. Because I have what I wanted all along. Him. Present. Here. Home. Steve had prepared a surprise for this interview too. Well, about that anniversary ceremony. I did a little digging, made some calls. Robert, do you remember a couple named Jim and Sarah Blackwood? Robert's eyes widened. Of course. They were on Platform Charlie with me 8 years ago. Jim saved my life when there was a blowout. Haven't seen them in years. Well, Steve said, gesturing to the side of the stage. They're here. A couple in their 50s walked out, and Robert jumped up, embracing Jim carefully. Brother, Jim said, emotion thick in his voice. When we saw your episode, Sarah and I couldn't believe it. 12 years, man. I worked 5 before Sarah made me choose between the rig and her. You chose right, Robert said, looking at Denise. Sarah hugged Denise. Honey, you're a saint for waiting. I gave Jim an ultimatum at year 5. But here's why they're really here, Steve continued. Jim, tell him what you do now. Jim smiled. I own a wedding venue in Florida, on the beach. And Sarah's a wedding planner. We want to give you the wedding you should have had 12 years ago. Everything. The dress, the flowers, the reception. On us. Denise's hands flew to her mouth. We couldn't possibly. Yes, you can, Sarah said firmly. That man missed 12 years of life working those rigs. The brotherhood out there is real. We take care of each other, even years later. Especially years later. The studio audience was tearing up again. Robert was speechless. It's scheduled for your 1-year anniversary, Jim added. Every oil rig worker who saw your episode wants to come. We've already got about 50 confirmed. Guys who worked with you over the years. They want to celebrate you finally getting it right. Robert had to sit down, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Steve said simply. Say yes to the blessing. Say yes to letting people love on you the way you loved on Denise. All those years from afar. Yes, Robert and Denise said together. The interview continued, but what struck everyone was how different Robert looked from the man who had proposed 6 months ago. The injuries had healed, but more than that, he looked present, really present. Not like someone who had 1 foot on a helicopter heading back to a rig, but someone who had planted both feet firmly on land, in his life, with his family. After the show, they received thousands of messages from other couples dealing with long-distance work situations. Robert started a blog, writing about the reality of transitioning from offshore life to family life. It wasn't all easy, he wrote honestly. There were nights he couldn't sleep, used to the motion of the rig. Times when the quiet of suburbia felt suffocating after the constant noise of machinery. Moments when he felt lost without the rigid structure of platform life. But then Denise would reach for him in the night, or Kayla would ask him to help with homework, or they'd have Sunday dinner with the whole family, and he'd remember why he'd come home. 1 year later, on a beach in Destin, Florida, Robert and Denise renewed their vows in front of 200 people. Oil rig workers from across the Gulf had come. Some had worked with Robert 12 years ago. Some just knew his story. They came with their families, many of whom had their own stories of waiting. Patricia walked Denise down the aisle this time. Denise wore a simple white dress, nothing elaborate, but she glowed in a way she hadn't at the Family Feud wedding. This time, she'd had time to prepare, to savor the anticipation. Robert stood at the altar in a suit instead of bandages, Kayla beside him as his best person. When he saw Denise, he cried openly. No longer the man who thought showing emotion was weakness. Steve Harvey himself officiated again, having flown in specially for the occasion. "We're gathered here today," Steve began, "not to witness a beginning, but to celebrate a continuation. A year ago, on my stage, these two finally made official what had been true for 12 years. Today we celebrate not just their love, but their courage to change, to grow, to choose each other not in crisis, but in calm." The ceremony was beautiful, but the reception was extraordinary. Oil rig workers shared stories of Robert, painting a picture of a man who'd been a mentor, a safety advocate, a friend who'd call your family for you when the satellite phone was working and you were on shift. Denise heard 12 years of stories about the man she'd loved from afar, understanding finally that he'd carried them with him every moment. During the reception, a young oil worker named Tommy approached Robert. "Mr. Chen," he said nervously, "I just started working offshore 6 months ago. Got a wife and new baby at home. After seeing your story, I wanted to ask, how do I not become you? I mean, the old you? How do I not miss 12 years? Robert put his hand on Tommy's shoulder. "You set limits, son. You take the time off even when they offer double pay to stay. You call home every chance you get. You remember that the money means nothing if you're not there to share it. And when you've saved enough, you get out. You don't wait for the perfect amount. You get out when you have enough." "How do you know when it's enough?" Tommy asked. Robert looked at Denise dancing with Kayla, both of them laughing. "When missing one more birthday would hurt more than having one more dollar would help. That's when you know." The young man nodded, understanding. As the night went on, couples shared their own stories. The Blackwoods talked about Jim's transition from rig life. Other families discussed the challenges and triumphs. It became less a wedding reception and more a celebration of all the families who'd survived the separation that offshore work demanded. Near the end of the evening, Kayla, now 11, made a speech that brought everyone to tears. "For most of my life," she began, "my dad was a voice on a phone, a face on a screen, a presence felt but not seen. I used to lie to my friends, tell them he was traveling for business, instead of admitting he was on an oil rig. It sounded less permanent. But this past year, I've gotten to know my dad as more than a voice. He's the guy who burns toast every morning because he gets distracted reading the news. He's the one who still can't figure out how to use the TV remote properly. He's the one who cries at commercials about families and thinks we don't notice. He's not perfect. We've had arguments now that we couldn't have over a satellite phone. We've had to learn how to be a family in the same space, instead of loving each other from a distance. But he's here. He's here for the arguments and the laughter and the boring Tuesday nights and the big moments and all the life in between." Mom waited 12 years for Dad to come home. But in a way, we all waited. We waited to be whole. And now we are. Not perfect, but whole. And that's everything. There wasn't a dry eye on the beach. Robert stood up, hugging his daughter, then pulling Denise into their embrace. "I want to say something. he said, his voice carrying across the beach. To everyone here who works offshore, who travels for work, who sacrifices time with family for the job. It's noble work, necessary work. But don't be me. Don't wait 12 years to realize that success isn't measured in the money you send home, but in the moments you're home to share. I thought I was being a provider. But Denise didn't need a provider. She needed a partner. Kayla didn't need things. She needed her dad. And for anyone watching that Family Feud episode who sees themselves in my story, come home. If you can, come home. The job will survive without you. Your family might not. The reception went late into the night, but eventually, it was just Robert, Denise, and Kayla walking along the beach. The same stars Robert had stared at from the rig, now reflected on the ocean. But now he was seeing them from shore, his family beside him. Any regrets? Denise asked him. Robert considered. About the 12 years? Every day. But about the last year? Not a single one. Not even the broken ribs. They laughed, remembering the absurdity of him proposing injured on national television. You know what the funny thing is? Robert said. If I hadn't almost died, if that crane hadn't fallen, I might still be out there, still planning for someday, still missing everything while trying to provide everything. Everything happens for a reason, Denise said softly. You really believe that? I believe that 12 years of waiting made me strong enough to handle you being home, Denise said with a smile. You're not easy to live with, Robert Chen. You organize my spice rack alphabetically. You wake up at 4 a.m. out of habit. You check the house locks 3 times before bed. Occupational hazards, Robert defended. But you're here to be difficult, Denise said. And that's all I ever wanted. 2 years after the Family Feud proposal, Robert published a book about his experience. 12 Years Offshore, a love story, became a bestseller, especially among families dealing with long-distance work. He donated the proceeds to a foundation supporting families of offshore workers. The book tour took him across the country, but this time, Denise and Kayla came with him. They made it a family adventure, seeing America together, making memories, to balance out all the missed ones. At one tour stop in Houston, a woman approached with tears in her eyes. My husband's been offshore for 8 years, she said. We watched your episode together on his last leave. That night, he put in his notice. He's coming home next month for good. You saved our marriage. These stories repeated in every city. Couples who'd been inspired to choose presence over pay. Families who'd recognized themselves in the Chen's story and decided to change their own ending. But it wasn't all easy or romantic. Robert was honest in his book and talks about the difficulties of reintegration. The fights that happened when 2 people who'd lived separate lives for 12 years suddenly had to share space. The financial stress of a significant pay cut. The identity crisis of no longer being an offshore man. He wrote about the night, 3 months after coming home, when he'd sat in his car in the driveway, keys in hand, fighting the urge to drive to the helicopter pad and go back to the rig. The pull of the familiar, even when the familiar was isolation. Denise had found him there at 2 a.m. You want to go back, she'd said. Not a question. Not want, he'd answered. But the pull is there. It's what I know, who I've been for so long. Then we'll sit here together until it passes, she'd said, getting in the passenger seat. They'd sat there until dawn, not talking much, just being together in the difficulty of change. That night became a turning point, the moment Robert chose his new life, not in a grand gesture, but in a quiet decision to stay. 3 years after the proposal, Kayla was 13 and entering high school. Robert had been to every parent-teacher conference, every band concert, every soccer game. He'd helped with science projects and stayed up late talking her through her first heartbreak. You know what's weird? Kayla told him one night while they were working on algebra homework. I can't really remember what it was like when you weren't here. Like, I know you were gone, I remember the video calls and stuff, but this feels more real. Like the other thing was the dream, and this is real life. Maybe that's good, Robert said. Maybe it means we've really built something new. Dad, Kayla said suddenly. Were you scared? When you decided to come home for good? Robert put down his pencil. Terrified. The rig was all I knew. It was my identity. I was good at it. Coming home meant starting over, being bad at things, not knowing who I was if I wasn't an oil rig worker. But you did it anyway. Because being scared of change was less scary than missing the rest of your life, Robert said. Fear is temporary. Regret is forever. Kayla hugged him. Kayla, I don't mean I'm glad you got hurt, she clarified quickly. But I'm glad something made you come home. Even if it had to be something terrible. Robert understood what she meant. Sometimes it took a crisis to break a pattern. Sometimes near death was the only thing that could wake someone up to life. 4 years after the proposal, Robert received a call that would bring his story full circle. James Patterson, the platform coordinator who'd made the phone call to Family Feud, was retiring. The company wanted Robert to speak at his retirement ceremony. The ceremony was in Houston, at a hotel ballroom filled with oil industry executives and workers. Robert stood at the podium, looking out at faces weathered by sun and salt, men and women who understood the unique sacrifice of offshore work. James Patterson, Robert began, made a phone call that changed my life. But more than that, he understood something that day that I'd forgotten after 12 years on the rigs. He understood that our humanity matters more than our productivity, that our families aren't just the reason we work, they're the reason we should stop working. When I told him from my hospital bed that I needed to get to Atlanta for a game show, he could have laughed. He could have told me to focus on healing. Instead, he moved heaven and earth to make it happen. He called in favors, expedited paperwork, arranged transport. Not because it made business sense, but because it made human sense. James, you didn't just help me surprise my family. You helped me save my family. You helped me save myself. And in doing so, you started a conversation that's changed how this entire industry thinks about work-life balance. Patterson stood up, tears in his eyes, and the two men embraced. The room erupted in applause. After the ceremony, Patterson pulled Robert aside. You know, Chen, that day you called from the hospital, I'd just gotten divorce papers, Patterson said quietly. 40 years of marriage, gone. She said I'd chosen the rigs over her one too many times. When you told me about Denise waiting 12 years, about needing to get to that show, I thought maybe if I could help you get it right, it would mean something. Like maybe it wasn't too late for someone. It's not too late for you either, Robert said. Patterson shook his head. It is for my marriage, but I've got grandkids I barely know. A son who doesn't return my calls. Maybe it's not too late for that. 6 months later, Robert received a photo from Patterson. It showed him at a baseball game with 2 young boys, his grandsons. The message read, retired, moved closer to family, trying to be the grandfather I wasn't able to be as a father. Thank you for showing me it's never too late to come home. 5 years after the proposal, the Chens were invited back to Family Feud for a special Where Are They Now episode. Steve had followed their story, had them on his show regularly, but this was a return to where it all started. The Family Feud stage looked exactly the same, but the Chens were different. Robert had gray in his hair now, the stress of 12 years offshore catching up with him. Denise had laugh lines that hadn't been there before, earned through 5 years of actual laughter with her husband present. Kayla was 15, confident and articulate, studying to become a counselor specifically to work with families separated by work. 5 years, Steve marveled. How does it feel? Like a lifetime and like yesterday, Denise answered. We've packed so much life into these 5 years. Not making up for lost time, Robert added, remembering their old conversation, but making sure we don't lose any more. They played a ceremonial round of Family Feud with other families who'd been impacted by their story. A young couple where the husband had left offshore work after seeing their episode. An older couple who'd reconciled after 15 years of the husband working on rigs. A family where the wife was the one who worked offshore and had found a land-based job after recognizing herself in Robert's story. During Fast Money, the questions seemed prophetic. Name something worth waiting for. Every family answered, love. Name something you can't get back. Every family answered, time. Name something that matters more than money. Every family answered, family. Name a place that feels like home. Every family answered, wherever my family is. Name the best prize you can win. Every family answered, a second chance. After the show, there was a reception with hundreds of families who'd been touched by their story. Robert and Denise moved through the crowd, listening to stories, offering advice, being present in a way Robert never could have been from a rig. A young woman approached Kayla. I'm 14, she said. My dad just took a job offshore. He says it's just for a few years, just until we're financially stable. But that's what your dad said, right? Kayla hugged her. Yeah, that's what he said. And he meant it. They all mean it. But the job has a way of becoming who you are instead of what you do. Show your dad our story. Tell him 12 years goes by faster than you think, and you can't get it back. The girl nodded, tears in her eyes. As the evening wound down, Steve pulled Robert and Denise aside. You know, in all my years doing this show, this story has had the most impact, he said. We get letters every week from families who've changed their lives because of your episode. Men and women who've come home from rigs, from long-haul trucking, from military contractors, from any job that kept them away. You didn't just change your life. You changed thousands of lives. We just lived our truth, Denise said modestly, the same thing she'd said years before. On national television, Steve added with a laugh. In front of millions. With broken ribs and 12 years of waiting. That takes courage most people don't have. Or desperation, Robert said, echoing his words from years ago. I was desperate not to lose her. Desperate not to miss any more of Kayla's life. Sometimes desperation looks like courage from the outside. Maybe that's what courage is, Steve suggested. Being desperate enough to change and then actually doing it. As they left the studio that night, the same studio where Robert had proposed with broken ribs 5 years earlier, Denise stopped at the spot where it had happened. Right here, she said, like she did every time they visited. Right here is where everything changed. No, Robert said, pulling her close. Everything changed when that crane fell. This is where I finally admitted it needed to change. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if the crane hadn't fallen? Denise asked. Every day, Robert admitted. And every day, I'm grateful it did. Not for the pain, not for the injuries, but for the wake-up call. Some of us are too stubborn to change without a crisis. Some of us are too patient to demand change, Denise countered. We were a perfect storm of dysfunction, Robert laughed. Were, Denise emphasized, past tense. They stood there for a moment, remembering. Then Kayla called out from across the studio where she was talking with some of the production crew. Mom, Dad, they want to know if we'll come back for the 10-year anniversary episode. Robert and Denise looked at each other and smiled. We'll be here, Robert called back. We'll always be here. And he meant it. No more choosing work over presence. No more promising next year, or after this contract, or when we have enough saved. He was here, now, present, and he would be, for all the days they had left. The ride home was quiet, each of them lost in their own thoughts. Kayla was in the back seat, texting friends about being on TV again. Denise was holding Robert's hand, her rings catching the streetlights as they drove. Robert was thinking about all the men still on rigs, still missing birthdays, still planning to come home soon. You know what? Robert said suddenly. I want to do more. The book, the talks, they're not enough. There are still too many people out there making the same mistake I made. What are you thinking? Denise asked, recognizing the tone in his voice. A nonprofit, a foundation, something that helps offshore workers transition to land-based jobs, career counseling, financial planning, family therapy. All the things I needed when I came home but had to figure out on my own. That's a big undertaking, Denise said carefully. I've got time, Robert said. All the time I used to spend on a rig, I can spend helping other people get off rigs. Kayla leaned forward from the back seat. I could help. I'm just in high school, but I could share my perspective, the kid's point of view. It would mean less income, Denise pointed out. Nonprofits don't pay well. We have enough, Robert said firmly. We have more than enough. We have each other. We have time together. That's wealth that no amount of offshore pay can match. Denise squeezed his hand. Then let's do it. Let's help other families avoid 12 years of waiting. 6 months later, the Chen Foundation for Family Reunification was officially launched. The mission was simple: help offshore workers transition to land-based careers without sacrificing their family's financial stability. They provided career counseling, job placement services, financial planning, and family therapy. The foundation's first success story was Tommy, the young worker who'd approached Robert at the wedding reception years earlier. He'd lasted 18 months offshore before remembering Robert's words about knowing when enough was enough. The foundation helped him find a job as a safety inspector for a construction company. Less money, but home every night. My son knows who I am, Tommy told Robert at the foundation's 1-year anniversary gala. He runs to me when I come home from work. Not because it's been 3 weeks since he's seen me, but because it's been 8 hours. That's the difference between a visitor and a father. By the foundation's 3rd year, they'd helped over 300 families reunite. They'd partnered with oil companies to create transition programs. They'd worked with community colleges to retrain offshore workers for land-based careers. They'd provided family counseling to hundreds of couples struggling with reintegration. But perhaps the most powerful part of the foundation was the support groups. Every Tuesday night in community centers across the Gulf Coast, families affected by offshore work gathered to share their stories. Robert and Denise attended as many as they could.